The chamber floated in the darkness of space like a massive crystal sphere. Inside, 500 species gathered under the soft glow of artificial light. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat in the human section, her hands folded on the smooth surface of her desk. She watched the other delegates with calm eyes. Around her, creatures of every shape moved and spoke. Some had scales. Others had fur or skin that glowed softly. The air smelled strange, a mix of 1,000 different worlds. Sarah had been coming to this place for 3 years. The Galactic Council met here to make decisions that affected billions of lives across the stars. Earth had joined 50 years ago, when humans first discovered they were not alone in the universe. At first it had seemed like a great honor. Now Sarah was not so sure. The meeting began with a low tone that vibrated through the floor. High Speaker Vorn rose from his seat. He was a Valorian, tall and thin with skin like polished silver. His large eyes seemed to look through people rather than at them. The Valorians were telepaths able to read thoughts if they chose to. They considered themselves the wisest race in the galaxy. "We face a great danger," Vorn said. His voice was soft, but it carried to every corner of the chamber. "Reports from the outer rim confirm what we feared. The Devourers are coming. They have already consumed 3 star systems. Thousands of worlds, trillions of lives gone." A wave of fear moved through the chamber. Some delegates made sounds of distress. Others sat very still. Sarah had read the reports. The Devourers were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They came from beyond, from the dark space between galaxies. They did not talk or trade or make treaties. They simply took everything and moved on. "We must form a defensive alliance," Vorn continued. "We must pool our military forces and our knowledge. Only together can we stand against this threat." For hours the debate went on. Species after species stood to speak. The reptilian Klaxari talked about their powerful fleet. The insect-like Zephyr described their weapons technology. The aquatic Delphine offered their strategic planning skills. Sarah waited for her turn. When it finally came, she stood slowly. "The human delegation would like to contribute to this alliance," Sarah said. Her voice was clear and steady. "We have studied the reports carefully. We believe we can offer valuable tactical insights. Our species has a long history of warfare. We have learned many lessons about how to fight against overwhelming odds." She activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air above her desk, showing battle formations and strategic concepts. "We propose a multi-layered defense strategy. Instead of meeting the Devourers head-on with a single massive fleet, we suggest—" A clicking sound interrupted her. It came from the Klaxari section. Commander Zith stood up, his mandibles moving in what Sarah had learned was laughter. He was covered in green-black chitin, with 4 arms and compound eyes that glittered in the light. "Forgive me, Ambassador Chen," Zith said, though his tone held no apology. "But this is amusing. The humans wish to teach us about warfare? Your species has been in space for less than 100 years. You still fight each other over pieces of dirt on your single planet. You call that experience?" Sarah felt heat rise in her cheeks but kept her expression neutral. "Commander, our history may be shorter than yours, but it is intense. Humans have fought thousands of wars. We have developed sophisticated tactics and strategies. We believe primitive warmongers," Zith said flatly. "That is what you are. You fight because you have not yet evolved beyond violence. This is not experience. This is proof of your barbarism." Sounds of agreement came from other sections of the chamber. Sarah saw delegates nodding or making their species equivalent gestures of approval. High Speaker Vorn raised one long hand. "The commander makes a point," Vorn said gently, as if explaining something to a child. "Humanity, your thinking is embarrassingly crude. We have examined your proposed tactics. They rely on aggression and deception. These are the tools of primitive minds. True strategic thinking requires sophistication you have not yet developed." Sarah's jaw tightened. "High Speaker, with respect, aggression and deception are valid military tools. Every successful civilization has used them. Are you saying the Valorians have never—" "We are saying," Vorn interrupted smoothly, "that humanity is not ready for this level of cooperation. Your unpredictability makes you dangerous to work with. Your methods are too different from ours, too crude." A vote was called. Sarah watched as species after species voted to exclude Earth from the defensive alliance. The numbers on the display were clear. 473 votes to exclude, 26 votes in favor of inclusion. Even many of Earth's supposed friends had voted against them. When the results appeared, some delegates actually applauded. Others made sounds of satisfaction. Sarah looked around the chamber and saw relief on many faces. They were happy to exclude humanity. She stood again. The chamber slowly fell silent. Sarah took a slow breath and looked directly at High Speaker Vorn. "Very well," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried. "The human delegation understands the Council's position. You do not want our help. You do not value our input. You do not trust our methods. This is clear." She paused and looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as she could. "Therefore, Earth hereby withdraws from the Galactic Council effective immediately. We will close our embassies. We will recall our citizens from Council space. We will cease all diplomatic relations." This caused a stir. Some delegates looked surprised. Others seemed pleased. Vorn tilted his head slightly. "This seems like an overreaction, Ambassador. We are simply being realistic about military cooperation. You can remain in the Council for other matters." "No," Sarah said simply. "If we are too primitive for military cooperation, then we are too primitive for the Council. You have made your judgment clear. We accept it and will act accordingly." She began gathering her materials. The other members of the human delegation stood as well. Sarah could feel hundreds of alien eyes watching her, but she did not hurry. She moved with careful dignity. As she reached the exit, she turned back one final time. "High Speaker Vorn, Commander Zith, members of the Council, you have taught us a valuable lesson today. You have shown us that diplomacy has its limits, that some species will never see us as equals no matter what we do or say. We will not forget this lesson." Sarah paused at the door. "You will regret teaching us that diplomacy has its limits," she said quietly. Then she walked out. Behind her, she heard laughter. It followed her down the corridor until the door sealed shut. In the chamber, Commander Zith was making jokes about human pride. Other delegates were already discussing the next item on the agenda. The exclusion of Earth was barely worth mentioning. High Speaker Vorn settled back into his seat. He felt satisfied with the outcome. The humans were too unpredictable, too violent in their thinking. Better to have them out of the way. The Council would handle the Devourer threat with proper sophistication. Only one voice spoke differently. General Thrak of the Krell, a warrior species that valued honor above all things, watched the human delegation leave. His rough face was thoughtful. He had fought beside humans once during a border conflict. He had seen how they fought. The Council was making a mistake, he thought. But no one asked for his opinion, so he stayed silent. In the darkness outside the chamber, Sarah Chen climbed into her shuttle. Her hands were shaking slightly, but her eyes were dry. She looked back at the crystal sphere of the Council chamber one last time. "Take us home," she told the pilot. "We have work to do." The shuttle jumped into faster-than-light travel. Behind it, the Council continued its business. None of them noticed that they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They had insulted humanity and then let them walk away. They would not understand what they had done until it was far too late. 3 weeks after Earth withdrew from the Council, the first human embassy closed. It happened on Valorian Prime, the shining capital world of High Speaker Vorn's people. The embassy staff packed their belongings in silence. They loaded everything onto transport ships and left. The Valorians who came to say goodbye found the building empty and dark. A single message played on repeat at the entrance. "Thank you for your hospitality. Earth wishes you well. This embassy is now closed." The same thing happened across the galaxy. Human colonies that had been growing on alien worlds packed up and departed. Trade stations went silent. The humans who had married aliens or started businesses in Council space said their goodbyes and left. It was organized and efficient. Within 6 weeks, every human presence in Council space had vanished. At first, many Council species were relieved. Commander Zith publicly stated that the galaxy was better off without human unpredictability. Other delegates agreed. The removal of Earth from Council affairs would make everything run more smoothly, they said. But as the weeks became months, something strange began to happen. People tried to contact Earth and received no response. Ships that approached the border of human space were turned back by automated defense platforms. The platforms did not explain. They simply transmitted a message. "This space is closed to foreign vessels. Turn back now." Curious species sent scout ships to observe from a distance. They saw human ships moving, but only within human territory. No human vessel crossed the border. No human transmission reached outside their space. It was as if humanity had built an invisible wall and sealed themselves behind it. "What are they doing in there?" a Delphine merchant asked in a council meeting 6 months after the withdrawal. "We used to trade with the humans. They bought our water crystals. They sold us their computer systems. Now nothing. They will not even answer our calls." High Speaker Vorn made a dismissive gesture. "The humans are sulking like children. They will come back when they realize they need the council more than the council needs them. Give them time." But time brought something else. The Devourers arrived at the edge of the galaxy. The first system to fall was a Zephyr colony. The insects sent out a distress call that echoed across the council networks. Billions of lives cried out for help. Then the signal went dead. When council ships arrived, they found nothing. The star was still there. The planets were still there. But every trace of life had been stripped away. Buildings were gone. Oceans were gone. Even the atmosphere was thinner, as if something had drunk it dry. The Devourers had taken everything and moved on. The council mobilized its fleet. Ships from 100 species gathered to form a defensive line. The Klaxari provided their heavy cruisers. The Valorians contributed their advanced shield technology. The Delphine offered their strategic command systems. It was an impressive force, the largest the galaxy had seen in 1,000 years. The Devourers swept through it like it was nothing. The battle lasted 6 hours. Commander Zith led the Klaxari ships in a direct assault. His heavy cruisers fired their most powerful weapons. The energy blast hit the Devourer vessels and simply disappeared, absorbed into the dark hulls. The Devourers returned fire with beams of purple light that cut through shields and armor like they were not there. Zith ordered a retreat when he lost half his fleet. The Valorians tried next, using their advanced tactics and coordination. They lasted 8 hours. The Delphine attempted a strategic withdrawal while inflicting maximum damage. They lasted 4 hours. 3 more systems fell. Then 5 more. The Devourers did not slow down. They did not negotiate. They just kept coming, an endless wave of dark ships that consumed everything in their path. 12 months after Earth's withdrawal, the Council met in emergency session. The chamber was half empty now. Many species had pulled their delegates back to defend their homeworlds. The ones who remained looked frightened. "We have lost 43 systems," High Speaker Vorn said. His silver skin looked dull now, almost gray. "Trillions of lives. Hundreds of worlds. Our fleets cannot stop them. Our weapons do not work. Our strategies fail." Commander Zith stood slowly. His chitin was cracked in places, scars from the battles he had survived. "We need to try something different," he said. "Our conventional approach is not working. We need new ideas. New tactics." General Thrak of the Krell rose from his seat. He was a massive creature built for war with thick scales and powerful limbs. "I know where we might find new tactics," he said quietly. "But you will not like my suggestion." "Speak," Vorn said. "The human," Thrak said. "We should contact Earth, ask for their help." Silence filled the chamber. Then several delegates began talking at once. Most of them were saying no. The idea was ridiculous. The humans were primitive. They had nothing to offer. Even if they did, they would never help after how the Council had treated them. "They will not answer anyway," Vorn said. "We have tried to contact Earth. They do not respond. They have sealed themselves away from the galaxy. Have we tried apologizing?" Thrak asked. No one answered that question. The Devourers continued their advance. More systems fell. Refugees fled in massive waves, clogging space lanes and overwhelming colony worlds. The Council's defensive lines kept collapsing. Nothing they tried made any difference. 18 months after Earth withdrew, rumors began to spread. Some said the humans had fled the galaxy entirely, running from the Devourer threat. Others claimed Earth had been destroyed, consumed by the enemy while everyone else had been distracted. A few species suggested that humanity had made a deal with the Devourers, trading the galaxy for their own survival. The truth was that no one knew what had happened to humanity. Their space was still sealed. Their borders were still protected by those silent automated platforms. But no human ship had been seen. No human transmission had been received. They had simply vanished. Some species began to feel regret. The Delphine, who had traded with humans for decades, spoke openly about missing their former partners. "They were different from us," a Delphine merchant said, "but they were honest in their dealings. They kept their promises. Perhaps we were too quick to judge them." General Thrak visited the border of human space. He took a small ship, just himself and a pilot. He broadcast a message on all frequencies. "This is General Thrak of the Krell. I wish to speak with humanity. I believe the Council made a mistake. I believe we need you. Please respond." He waited for 3 days. The automated platforms continued their patrol patterns. No other response came. Finally, Thrak returned to Council space. "They do not wish to talk," he reported. "Or perhaps they cannot hear us anymore." The silence from human space was complete. It was as if Earth and all its colonies had ceased to exist. Some found this frightening. Others found it sad. A few found it strangely ominous, as if the silence itself was a message they were not wise enough to understand. Then, exactly 18 months after the last human had left Council space, something appeared. It was a probe, small and automated. It drifted through a major trade route, broadcasting a simple message in a loop. Every ship that passed could hear it. Every station could receive it. The message was in perfect galactic standard. The voice was synthetic but clear. "This is a message from humanity. We withdrew from the Council to prepare. We were told we were too primitive, too crude, too dangerous. We accepted this judgment. We went home to consider what it meant." The probe continued its broadcast as it drifted through space. "We have spent this time learning, building, preparing. We watched your war against the Devourers. We studied their tactics. We analyzed their technology. We learned from your failures." The message paused, as if for effect. "When we return, things will be different. You taught us that diplomacy has limits. Thank you for that lesson. We will not forget it. We are coming. Wait for us." The probe broadcast this message for 6 hours, then self-destructed in a flash of light. Copies of the recording spread across the galaxy. Some species found the message threatening. Others found it hopeful. Most found it confusing. High Speaker Vorn listened to the recording 3 times. He felt something he had not felt in his long life. It was close to fear, but not quite. It was the feeling of realizing that a mistake had been made, and that the consequences were coming. "What does it mean?" Commander Zith asked. "Are they coming to help us? Or to punish us?" "I do not know," Vorn admitted. "But I think we are about to find out." The galaxy waited. The Devourers continued their advance. And somewhere in the sealed territory of human space, something was happening. Something the Council did not understand and could not see. Humanity was preparing. The silence would not last forever. Fleet Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the observation deck of Armstrong Station and looked at Earth. The blue planet turned slowly below him, wrapped in white clouds. Around it, space was alive with activity. Ships moved in careful patterns. Construction platforms hung in orbit, massive structures of metal and light. Everywhere he looked, humanity was building. He had been given this position 2 days after Ambassador Chen returned from the Council. The government had called him to a secret meeting in Geneva. They showed him the recording of what had happened. They told him what needed to be done. "We need to build a fleet," the Secretary General had said. "Not a fleet to explore or to trade. A fleet to fight. A fleet that will make the galaxy understand that humanity will not be dismissed again." Marcus had looked at the faces around the table, leaders from every nation on Earth. They were all nodding. For the first time in human history, the entire species was united behind a single purpose. "How long do we have?" Marcus had asked. "We estimate 18 months before the Devourers reach Council core systems," an intelligence officer replied. "After that, the Council will collapse. If we want to make a difference, we need to be ready by then." 18 months to build a fleet from nothing. It seemed impossible. But Marcus had learned that humans were good at doing impossible things when they were properly motivated. Being insulted and dismissed by 500 alien species turned out to be very good motivation. The plan had been simple in concept, but massive in execution. Every human colony, every space station, every industrial facility would contribute. They would strip mine asteroids for metal. They would build shipyards in every system. They would work around the clock in shifts that never stopped. More importantly, they would think differently. The Council species built their ships according to traditions that were thousands of years old. They followed rules about honorable combat and proper military behavior. Humans had no such rules. Humans had something else. They had 10,000 years of killing each other in creative ways. Marcus had assembled a team of military historians. He gave them one task: study every war humanity has ever fought, he said. Find the tactics that worked. Find the strategies that won. I don't care if they come from ancient Rome or modern China or anywhere in between. If it worked on Earth, we can make it work in space. They discovered that human warfare had lessons the galaxy had forgotten or never learned. Concepts like asymmetric warfare, guerrilla tactics, psychological operations. Humans understood that war was not just about who had the biggest guns. It was about who could adapt faster, think smarter, and refuse to give up. The ship designs reflected this philosophy. Human vessels did not look like council ships. They were not elegant or beautiful. They were functional. Some carried massive railguns that could fire metal slugs at enormous speeds. Others were designed as carrier ships, launching swarms of small fighters that could overwhelm larger vessels. Still others were built to deploy electronic warfare, jamming enemy systems and creating chaos. They borrowed ideas from history. Submarine tactics from World War II became the basis for stealth ship operations. Ancient cavalry charges inspired the design of fast-strike cruisers. Medieval siege warfare informed their approach to attacking fortified positions. Everything humans had learned from killing each other was adapted for space, and they studied the Devourers. Every report from the Council was analyzed. Every battle was examined frame by frame. Human intelligence officers watched how the enemy moved, how they attacked, how they consumed. They looked for patterns and weaknesses. They fight like a swarm, one analyst reported. Individual ships are not very intelligent. They rely on collective behavior, like ants or bees. If we can disrupt their coordination, they become confused. Their absorption technology is powerful but not perfect, another added. It works well against energy weapons, but physical projectiles seem to penetrate better. They are also vulnerable during their feeding process. That is when they are most focused and least mobile. This information shaped the fleet. Human ships were equipped with both energy weapons and kinetic weapons. They carried electronic warfare packages designed to disrupt coordination. They practiced hit-and-run tactics, never staying in one place long enough for the swarm to focus on them. The soldiers and officers trained constantly. They studied battles from galactic history, looking for mistakes to avoid. They read about the fall of empires and the strategies that had failed. They learned the weaknesses of every council species military doctrine. Captain Elena Rodriguez was one of the training instructors. She had been a fighter pilot before the withdrawal. Now she taught others how to think like predators. The council species are herbivores and herd animals, she told her students. They think in terms of safety and consensus. We are persistence hunters. We chase our prey until it cannot run anymore. Remember that. The technology came together piece by piece. Human engineers took alien designs they had purchased or studied and improved them. A Klexari shield generator was made more efficient by changing its power distribution. A Valorian sensor array was enhanced with human signal processing algorithms. A Delphine life support system was adapted to work with less energy. But the real breakthrough came from human creativity. Engineers developed a weapon the Council had never imagined. It was simple in concept, a missile that did not try to penetrate shields with energy or explosives. Instead, it carried a dense metal core and simply rammed into enemy ships at enormous speed. The kinetic energy was devastating. They called it a kinetic kill vehicle. The Council species thought it was primitive. Marcus thought it was perfect. The shipyards worked without rest. Construction crews were rotated in shifts that covered every hour of every day. New ships rolled out of the yards every week. Each one was tested thoroughly. Each one was equipped with the latest weapons and systems. Each one was crewed by men and women who knew exactly what they were fighting for. Marcus watched it all come together from Armstrong Station. He saw the fleet grow from dozens of ships to hundreds. The target was 1,000 warships. It seemed like an insane number. No species in the galaxy could build that many vessels in 18 months. But humans did it, with 3 days to spare. On the final day, Marcus stood on the observation deck and looked at what humanity had created. 1,000 warships hung in formation around Earth. They ranged in size from small, quick frigates to massive battleships that dwarfed anything the Council had ever built. Each one was painted with a simple marking. A blue circle representing Earth, no flags, no national symbols, just Earth. Ambassador Chen joined him at the window. She had been working just as hard as everyone else, coordinating between governments and making sure resources went where they were needed. She looked tired but satisfied. "We did it," she said quietly. "We did," Marcus agreed. "Now we have to use them." Reports from Council space were dire. The Devourers had reached Concordia, the neutral world where the Council chamber floated. It was the symbolic heart of galactic civilization, If it fell, the Council would effectively cease to exist. Species were already fleeing, abandoning the system to save themselves. "That is where we go," Marcus said. "We show up when they need us most. We prove what humans can do." Chen nodded slowly. "They will not welcome us. They will be afraid of us." "Good," Marcus said. "Fear means respect. We tried being friendly. That did not work. Now we try being strong." He turned away from the window and pulled up a holographic display. The fleet layout appeared in the air. 1,000 blue dots arranged in precise formations. Each dot represented hundreds of people who had worked 18 months for this moment. Each dot represented human will and human determination and human refusal to be dismissed. Marcus sent out the order to all ships. His message was brief and direct. "All vessels, this is Fleet Admiral Webb. We have trained for this. We have prepared for this. The galaxy thought we were too primitive to fight beside them. Let us show them what primitive means." He paused, then added the most important part. "Take us to Concordia. It is time the galaxy remembered why you don't corner a predator. Activate faster than light drives on my mark." He looked at Chen. She gave him a small nod. Marcus took a deep breath and gave the command that would change galactic history. "All ships, jump." 1,000 warships opened portals into faster than light space. The flash of their departure lit up the night sky of Earth. People on the planet below looked up and saw the light. They knew what it meant. Humanity was going to war, not for conquest or territory, not for resources or power, for respect, for the right to stand equal with the other species of the galaxy, for the simple dignity of being taken seriously. The fleet vanished into faster-than-light space, heading for Concordia. Behind them, Earth continued to turn. The shipyards kept building because 1,000 ships might not be enough. Humanity had learned its lesson well. Never again would they be unprepared. Never again would they be dismissed. In the council chamber on Concordia, High Speaker Vorn received word that the Devourer fleet would arrive within hours. He prepared to evacuate. He prepared to watch his civilization's heart fall. He did not know that help was coming. He did not know that the species he had insulted 18 months ago was about to save everything he held dear. The council chamber was in chaos. Alarms screamed through the station. Outside the crystal dome, the Devourer fleet filled the darkness like a cancer. Their ships were wrong shapes, organic curves that hurt to look at for too long. Purple light flickered across their hulls as they prepared to fire. High Speaker Vorn stood at his station, watching the last defense ships fall. The Klaxari cruisers had tried to form a shield wall around Concordia. They had lasted 12 minutes. Now their burning wrecks drifted through space, adding their light to the purple glow of the Devourer weapons. "Evacuation is complete," an aide reported. "All delegates are boarding the last transport ships." Vorn did not move. He watched the Devourers approach and felt the weight of failure. The council had existed for 10,000 years. It had survived wars and plagues and disasters. Now it would end because they had been too proud to accept help from an unexpected source. "High Speaker, we must go," the aide said urgently. "Yes," Vorn said quietly. "We must go. There is nothing left to defend." That was when the sensors began screaming a different alert. Every display in the chamber suddenly lit up with the same warning. Massive gravitational distortion detected, multiple faster-than-light signatures, unknown vessels approaching. Vorn looked at the tactical display. His silver skin went pale. At the edge of the system, space was tearing open. Not one portal, not 10. Hundreds of them spreading across the system boundary like flowers blooming in fast motion. Ships emerged. So many ships that the sensors could not count them fast enough. They came in perfect formation, organized into groups that spread across millions of kilometers. Each vessel was marked with the same symbol, a simple blue circle. "Earth," Vorn whispered. "Those are human ships." The aide stared at the display. "How many are there?" 1,000, Vorn said, reading the sensor data with disbelief. 1,000 warships. They built 1,000 warships in 18 months. A transmission came through on all frequencies. The voice was human, speaking perfect galactic standard with a calm authority that cut through the chaos. "This is Fleet Admiral Marcus Webb of the Terran Defense Fleet. Humanity has returned. We are here to finish what you started. All council forces withdraw to safe distance. We will handle this." The human fleet advanced. They did not charge wildly like the Klaxari had. They did not arrange themselves in rigid defensive lines like the Valorians preferred. They moved like a living thing, fluid and coordinated. The formation shifted constantly, groups of ships moving in patterns that made no sense to Council tactical doctrine. The Devourers noticed them. The dark swarm began to turn, purple light flickering across thousands of hulls. They had consumed 43 Council systems. They had destroyed fleets 10 times larger than what they faced now. They showed no sign of fear or hesitation. The battle began with a sound like thunder rolling through space. Human railguns opened fire, launching metal slugs at speeds that bent light around them. The projectiles punched through Devourer hulls that had shrugged off energy weapons. Ships that had seemed invincible suddenly had holes torn through their cores. The Devourers returned fire. Purple beams lanced out, the same weapons that had cut through Council shields like they were nothing. But the human ships did not try to absorb the energy. They simply moved, fast. Ships that should have been too large to maneuver quickly spun and dodged like fighters. The beams missed or only grazed shields that were angled to deflect rather than absorb. Commander Zith watched from his damaged cruiser, stunned. How are they moving like that? Ships that size should not be able to turn so quickly. They are not trying to be strong, General Thrax said slowly. He had joined Zith's ship when his own was destroyed. They are trying to be fast. To not get hit in the first place, it is a completely different philosophy. The human fleet broke into smaller groups. Some engaged the Devourers directly, drawing their attention. Others swept around the flanks, firing from unexpected angles. Still others hung back, launching missiles that weaved through the battle like silver snakes. When the missiles hit, they did not explode with energy. They simply punched through hulls and kept going, tearing massive wounds in the Devourer vessels. It was brutal and effective. Council species did not fight this way. They believed in honor and proper military conduct. Humans believed in winning. Then something stranger happened. Some of the Devourer ships began to act confused. They fired at empty space or at each other. Their coordination broke down. Ships that should have been working together started drifting apart. What is happening to them? Zith asked. Electronic warfare, Thrax said, pointing at his sensors. The humans are jamming their coordination signals. The Devourers fight as a swarm, break the swarm mind, and they become confused. It was true. Specialized human ships were broadcasting interference across multiple frequencies. They had studied how the Devourers communicated and found ways to disrupt it. Now the terrifying swarm was just a collection of individual ships, each one trying to figure out what to do without the guidance of the whole. The human fleet pressed their advantage. Carrier ships launched swarms of fighters. Each fighter was small and quick, carrying just enough weapons to damage a Devourer ship. They attacked in coordinated waves, hitting weak points that human analysts had identified from months of study. The Council delegates watched in shock. This was warfare as they had never seen it. The humans were not trying to overpower the Devourers with superior technology. They were outthinking them, using tactics the enemy had never encountered, adapting in real time to every change in the battle. A Devourer battleship, one of the largest in their fleet, tried to retreat. Human cruisers cut off its path. They did not try to destroy it with overwhelming force. Instead, they targeted its propulsion systems with precise railgun fire. The battleship went dead in space, unable to move. Then the human ship simply left it there, moving on to the next target. They are not wasting resources on kills, Thrax observed. They disable ships and move on. Very efficient. Very ruthless, the battle raged for hours. The human fleet never stopped moving. They rotated damaged ships out of the fight and brought fresh ones in. They adapted their tactics every time the Devourers tried something new. When the enemy concentrated their forces, the humans scattered. When the enemy scattered, the humans concentrated. It was like watching a master fighter against an opponent who only knew how to punch. Every move the Devourers made was countered. Every tactic they tried had already been anticipated. The humans had studied this enemy for 18 months. They knew every weakness. They exploited every flaw. On the flagship Indomitable, Admiral Webb watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Everything was going according to plan. The crew around him worked with practiced efficiency, calling out targets and coordinating strikes. These people had trained for this exact scenario. Ambassador Chen stood beside him. She had insisted on being here for this moment. They are breaking, she said quietly. She was right. The Devourer fleet was starting to fall apart. Ships that had seemed unstoppable were fleeing. Others drifted dead in space. The swarm that had consumed 43 systems was being torn to pieces by human weapons and human tactics. Press the attack, Webb ordered. Do not let them regroup. Drive them out of this system. The human fleet surged forward. They did not show mercy because they had learned that the Devourers gave none. They did not offer terms because they knew the enemy would not accept them. They simply fought with everything they had, using every trick and tactic that 10,000 years of human warfare had taught them. The Devourer fleet broke completely. Ships that could still move jumped into faster-than-light space, fleeing in random directions. For the first time since they had entered the galaxy, the Devourers were retreating, running away, defeated. In the council chamber, silence fell. Every delegate stared at their displays in shock. The battle was over. The humans had won. 1,000 warships had defeated an enemy that had seemed unstoppable. High Speaker Vorn sat down slowly. His hands were shaking. They saved us, he whispered. The humans saved us. Commander Zith made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. We called them primitive. We called them crude. We said they had nothing to teach us about warfare. We were wrong, Thrak said simply. Very, very wrong. Admiral Webb's voice came through on all channels again. This is Fleet Admiral Webb to all Council forces. The immediate threat is neutralized. We will remain in system to ensure the Devourers do not return. Please tend to your wounded. We can discuss other matters once everyone is safe. The transmission ended. The human fleet took up defensive positions around Concordia, forming a protective ring. They moved with the same precision they had shown in battle. Not a single ship was out of position. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. Humanity had withdrawn in shame 18 months ago. Now they had returned as saviors. The species that had been dismissed as too primitive to fight beside had just won a battle that no one else could win. But the battle was only the beginning. Now came the harder part. Now humanity had to decide what kind of relationship they wanted with the species that had insulted them. They had proven their strength. The question was what they would do with it. On the indomitable, Chen looked at Webb. Now what? She asked. 3 days after the battle, the council chamber opened again. The crystal dome had been repaired. The stations had been cleaned. From the outside, it looked like nothing had changed. But inside, everything was different. The delegates gathered slowly. Many wore expressions of shame or fear. They took their seats and waited in unusual silence. Outside the dome, the human fleet remained in perfect formation. 1,000 warships, a constant reminder of what had happened. High Speaker Vorn stood at his position. His silver skin looked duller than before, as if the last 3 days had aged him decades. He looked around the chamber and saw faces he had known for years, species that had been allies, friends. All of them were thinking the same thing. They had made a terrible mistake. The council will come to order, Vorn said. His voice was quiet. We meet today to address the matter of Earth and humanity. I call upon Ambassador Sarah Chen to enter. The doors opened. Chen walked in alone. She wore the same formal suit she had worn 18 months ago when she left this chamber. Her steps echoed in the silence. She walked to the human section and stood at the desk that had been empty for so long. Every eye in the chamber was on her. Chen looked around slowly, meeting as many gazes as she could. She saw fear in some faces, shame in others, relief in a few. She saw Commander Zith, who had called humans primitive warmongers. She saw the Valorian delegation, who had said human thinking was embarrassingly crude. She saw them all. Ambassador Chen, Vorn began. He seemed to struggle for words. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I wish to express our gratitude for humanity's intervention. You saved billions of lives. You defeated an enemy we could not overcome. We are in your debt. Chen inclined her head slightly but said nothing. The silence stretched. Vorn continued, clearly uncomfortable. We also wish to acknowledge that the Council treated Earth unfairly. We dismissed your contributions. We excluded you from the defensive alliance. We said things that were unkind and untrue. For this we apologize. More murmurs of agreement came from around the chamber. Several delegates stood to add their own apologies. They spoke of regret and mistake and hope for future cooperation. Chen listened to them all without expression. When the last apology was finished, Chen finally spoke. Her voice was calm and clear. Thank you for your words. Humanity accepts your apologies. We understand that mistakes were made. Relief washed across many faces, but Chen was not finished. However, apologies are just words. What matters now is what we do next. The galaxy has changed. The threat of the Devourers remains. They retreated, but they are not destroyed. They will return, and when they do, we must be ready. She activated a holographic display. Battle formations appeared in the air above her desk. Humanity is willing to continue fighting alongside the Council, but there are conditions. First, Earth must be recognized as a senior member of this body, with full voting rights and authority equal to any other species. No one objected. Vorn nodded immediately. Agreed. Second, Chen continued, human military doctrine and tactics must be integrated into galactic defense strategy. Our methods work. The battle proved that. We will train your officers. We will share our knowledge. But you must be willing to learn from us, not dismiss us as primitive. This caused more discomfort. Several delegates shifted in their seats, but no one spoke against it. They had seen what human tactics could accomplish. Pride was not worth death. Third, Chen said, the Terran defense fleet will remain at full strength. We will not disarm. We will not reduce our forces. We will continue to build ships and train soldiers, not because we want war, but because we will never again be caught unprepared. This was harder to accept. Several delegates looked nervous at the idea of humans maintaining such a large military force. But Commander Zith stood slowly. I support this condition, he said. Humanity has proven they are not the threat we feared. The Devourers are the threat. Let Earth build as many ships as they need. General Thrax stood as well. I also support this. The Krell understand the value of strength. Humanity showed strength when it mattered most. They have earned the right to defend themselves however they see fit. One by one, other delegates rose to show their agreement. The vote was called. The result was nearly unanimous. Earth was now a senior council member. Human military doctrine would be integrated into galactic defense, and the Terran defense fleet would remain at full strength. Chen watched the votes come in. She felt a mix of satisfaction and sadness. This was what they had wanted. Respect, recognition, a place at the table as equals. But the cost had been high. 18 months of isolation. The fear and uncertainty of not knowing if they would succeed. The battle itself where good people had died. When the voting finished, she spoke again. There is one more thing I want to say. Humanity does not seek revenge for what happened 18 months ago. We do not hold grudges. We understand that different species see the universe in different ways. What happened in this chamber was a misunderstanding, not an unforgivable sin. She paused and looked directly at Vorn. But we will not forget. We remember every word that was said, every vote that was cast. We remember who stood with us and who stood against us. This memory will guide our actions going forward. The message was clear. Humanity would work with the Council, but trust would have to be earned again. Chen turned to leave, then stopped. She looked back at the assembled delegates. One last thing, she said. You called us primitive. You said our methods were crude and our thinking was embarrassingly simple. You were wrong about the embarrassing part, but you were right that we think differently than you do. We are predators. We are survivors. We evolved on a planet that tried very hard to kill us, and we refused to die. That shaped how we see the universe. She smiled slightly. You are welcome for the help. But remember this. The same traits that make us dangerous to your enemies make us dangerous in general. The difference is that we choose to be your friends. We hope you will choose to be ours in return. With that, she left the chamber. The doors closed behind her with a soft sound. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then discussions broke out across the chamber. Some delegates were relieved. Others were thoughtful. A few were clearly still afraid of what humanity might do with their newfound power. Commander Zith approached High Speaker Vorn after the session ended. The two stood looking out at the human fleet through the crystal dome. Do you think they will stay peaceful? Zith asked quietly. Vorn was silent for a moment. I think they will stay as peaceful as we allow them to be. If we treat them with respect, they will return that respect. If we threaten them, they will respond as they always have, with overwhelming force and no hesitation. Then we must be very careful, Zith said. Yes, Vorn agreed. Very careful indeed. On the Indomitable, Admiral Webb received confirmation that the treaty had been signed. He stood on the bridge with Ambassador Chen, both of them looking at the display showing Earth in the distance. They had done what they set out to do. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy. Do you think it will last? Chen asked. The peace between us and the Council? Webb considered the question. It will last as long as both sides remember what happened here. The Council learned that dismissing humans was a mistake. We learned that we cannot isolate ourselves from the galaxy. As long as everyone remembers those lessons, we will be fine. And if they forget? Chen asked. Webb smiled grimly. Then we will remind them. We have 1,000 warships to help with that reminder. Chen laughed softly. I think I preferred being a diplomat to being a threat. You are still a diplomat, Webb said. Just a diplomat backed by the most powerful military force the galaxy has seen in generations. There is nothing wrong with that. General Thrak requested permission to come aboard the Indomitable. Webb granted it immediately. The Krell warrior arrived in a small shuttle and was escorted to the bridge. He stood before Webb and Chen, his massive frame somehow managing to look humble. I wanted to speak with you privately, Thrak said, to thank you for what you did. And to apologize, Chen looked surprised. You voted in favor of including us in the Alliance, General. You have nothing to apologize for. I voted for you, yes, Thrak said, but I did not speak more forcefully in your defense. I did not challenge the others when they insulted you. I stayed silent when I should have stood up. For that I am sorry. Webb studied the Krell general. Why did you stay silent? Thrak looked uncomfortable. Because I did not think it mattered. I thought the Council would realize its mistake eventually. I did not imagine you would withdraw completely. I underestimated how deeply the insult cut. You were not the one who insulted us, Chen said gently. But thank you for the apology. It means something coming from you. Thrak nodded slowly. The Klaxari have a saying. The best weapon is the one your enemy does not know you have. You followed that wisdom well. You withdrew and we thought you were weak or afraid. Then you returned with strength we did not imagine possible. It was brilliant strategy. We learned from the best, Webb said. We studied every battle in galactic history, including many Krell victories. Your people know how to fight with honor and strength. We tried to combine both. You succeeded, Thrak said. And you did something else. You showed mercy. You could have let Concordia fall.